start by an acknowledgement of country. So we begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands we are meeting on. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and express our intention to move together to a place of justice and partnership. Tonight we're having Robyn Papworth. She's a pediatric exercise physiologist and a developmental educator. And she's passionate about improving children's movement, play, and self-regulation. And we're going to talk about play and the vagus nerve. And we would aim at discovering how incorporating playful activities can positively impact children's physical and emotional health. So before we start, I want to remind everyone that this session, unlike the usual sessions, is recorded. So if we do have your camera on, and also, yeah, if you can mute, because we're a big session tonight, and it might be a bit noisy, so it would be nice. And so if you keep your camera on, there is the chance that you're going to be on the final recording, which is fine to me at least, but it's up to you. So tonight, I'm going to facilitate the session. You can post questions in the chat, and it's a big session tonight. So I'm not sure. I'm gonna aim at passing on every question, but please be patient. If you want your question to be anonymous, please write something about it. This way I don't say your name again. There's a recording, so it's up to you. Also, I'd like to remind you that facilitators are usually me, Caroline. We're not professionals, and sometimes we can be part of the discussion and talk about our own experiences, but by no means it means that we are professional, that telling you what to do or any of that. And that's all for me. So I'm gonna pass the microphone to Robyn.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for Sally for organising it, and thank you, Benoit, for facilitating it. It's a big job, so thank you. My name is Robyn Papworth. You did amazing with saying my titles. That's quite a complex title. To be honest, the children that I work with just call me the play lady. Usually in class, in session, I'm in scrubs. So they love the different scrubs that I wear, and I'm quite playful in the work that I do. And I'm also quite relaxed and as low stress as we can in the sessions that I run. So no question tonight is a silly question. If we don't get to all of your questions tonight, please know that you can find me online at Play, Move, Improve. I support families all around the world. So I'm very passionate about what I do because my son was born with dyspraxia. He's now 11 years of age. That's when I got into the world of early childhood. My specialty is from ages 3 years to 12 years. And what I was finding was quite interesting is when I would go into a classroom, I'd be going in as an exercise physiologist, all about motor development, but I'd really be like a magnet to children from trauma. And I had to reflect on that. And it's because I am from trauma myself. As a child, both of my parents are substance abusers. So I was obviously in that bracket of emotional neglect, physical neglect at times. And so I feel like in the space of early childhood, I was just finding myself around children who felt like me, were as fearful and as anxious as me. And so I just started to develop programs that could help not just children with developmental delay, but also with children with trauma. And of course, on my own healing journey, I've just immersed myself around these beautiful trauma research projects. So I want to share with you my role in the trauma space. I, of course, still do a lot around motor development. So I do a lot of my resources online are around motor development, but today is all about how we support a child and us and adults with what I call a trauma brain. I want to explain to you what it looks like and feels like from my perspective. But most importantly, by the end of today, you're going to have so many strategies up your sleeve. I do have to say a similar disclaimer that, of course, I don't know your family situation. I don't know the exact individuals that I provide these strategies to. They might not work. They might not be as effective as we hope. or more wonderfully, they might really be a great impact for your family and your community. So I just give you a general idea. Of course, if you need more individualized support, you can reach out to me, or you can reach out to your local allied health team. So away we go. Now, before I talk about the vagus nerve, which is, I know what you're all here for, I want to explain the senses, and I want to explain why this is so important. So in our brain, my favorite little friend here, we have an area of the brain called the brainstem. So if you can imagine, the brainstem is our system, our filter. It takes all of the sensory information in from our environment, from our play, from our movement. It interprets this information and it sends information back out to our muscles. Basically, what we feel and experience in our environment, our brain interprets, and it comes out as behavior, or as the actions that we play. I want you to try and work on these 8 sensations that I want to share with you tonight. And once we learn about these 8 sensations, we can start to understand why some of us have the behaviors that we do, or why some of us react in the way that we react. And the main part of the brain that we're going to talk about today is the brainstem, because that's where this filter is, that's telling us what sensory information we should be paying attention to, what sensory information we're reacting to. So I'm going to refer to my brain quite a lot. You don't need to worry about the anatomy and the specific words, but I just wanted to try and give you an understanding that our brain is different. If we look, there's been lots of research in the brain from a person, and particular child who's been from trauma. Our amygdala, our fight, flight, alarm system of our brain, we know is more active than most other people in a different situation. So I want to give you strategies that help to calm down that amygdala, and that's where our vagus nerve comes in. So let's talk about our senses first, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of that beautiful vagus nerve. We all know our 5 senses. We call them tactile, or also known as touch. We have sight, sound, smell, and taste. But what we've found in the research over the last 10, 15 years are these beautiful 3 other sensations: proprioception, vestibular, and interoception. These special senses we all have, we all need, but I feel in the work that I do, these 3 sensations, our special sensations, are the ones that cause us a little bit of havoc. So I want to give you strategies of what to look for in our children that are seeking or avoiding these sensations, and most importantly, what to do about it. I break it all down for you. I'll share you these slides as you send out the recording. So don't feel like you have to write it all down. You're welcome to these slides. There's heaps of pictures coming up, and just to help you have a little toolkit for you moving forward. When I explain how the senses work, it works like a symphony. So if you can imagine a big orchestra and all of our sensations are working together, what we call asynchronous, or what we call poor sensory processing, is when one of those sensations isn't working with the rest of the choir or the rest of the symphony. And this is what happens a lot with children who are neurodiverse. So they might have ADHD, ASD, and also children that are from trauma. Our nervous system and our sensory system isn't working in synchrony, isn't working as a team. Often we'll find that we'll seek one particular sensation, and that sensation will overdrive the other sensations. Mine, for example, is proprioception. You can already see probably from my hands that I use them a lot. I seek a lot of proprioception, and I avoid auditory. I don't like lots of sound. And so often what I'll find is I will be retreating away from noisy shopping centers. I'm not a huge fan of parties. And so we want to try and work out what our symphony is up to. And I want to help you be able to do that. So have a think sometimes as we go throughout this session, not only of the children that we care for's symphony and sensory systems, but also our own, because we'll all have similar, we're different so we all have a profile, but we're not similar to the people just because we live with them or we care for them. So I want you to really put yourself into the perspective of this sensory brain, and also your family as well. And I can help you if you have any questions, for sure. I often talk about also, we need to be able to respond to this sensory information appropriately. So children we know that have ASD, ADHD, trauma, there's an area in our brain that I'll talk to you a little bit about more in a minute. It's a filter, and we have to be able to not take in too much sensory information, or we get really easily distracted. We have to also not avoid too much sensory information. Otherwise, we'll get too distracted. So I'm going to show you how we find that happy medium so that our sensory system is nice and rhythmic and harmonious. Well, I want to show you where it happens in the brain so you can start to realize why some of our little ones may get stuck in the lower area of the brain. Working with children at the moment under the age of 5, we're seeing a lot of reactive behavior. So where we might suddenly tip things off of a table, push and shove our siblings without thinking first. We're seeing a challenge in children's brainstem development since the introduction of technology. We know that when we were growing up, we were more active, climbing trees, playing hopscotch, skipping, playing elastics. Our top area of our brain, our sensory cortex, our motor cortex, was getting play and movement when we were growing up. Our current generation of little ones are spending a lot of time on screens, limiting this motor cortex, sensory cortex information. So we're sitting a lot in the lower part of our brain that's very reactive, doesn't think about consequences. So when I'm talking about the strategies tonight, I'm talking about the top end, what we call the thinking brain, because this is where we have our consequences. We plan our movements. We think about what we do before we do it. But you can imagine that often a lot of us sit in our limbic brain where our emotions take over, and our cerebellum down the bottom where it's very reactive. So when we talk about the brain, I'll keep bringing you back to this picture, because what I find in the work that I do, once we know why we react or children react in a particular way, we start to then be able to put an action plan in place. It's when these behaviors come out of nowhere, we don't know why they're happening, then our anxiety can come up as well. So you'll work with me for the next hour and a bit on this brain, and you'll get to know it so beautifully well. To get started though, I just want you to think. I say frog, you say. Now you don't have to share it with me, but I say frog. What's the first thing that comes to mind? You can share it in the chat box. You can share it just with yourself. You'll find that a lot of people, you'll all say different things. Some of you will say ribbit because your auditory system thinks about the sound of a frog. Others will think slimy because you'll be thinking about the tactile components of a frog. Other people will think green or blue or red, instant colors of the frog that you might have seen, because you're thinking of the sight version of a frog. One word, frog, can have so many different responses to what you think about, to what you're visualizing in your mind. Some of you will think of a frog and go, oh, so cute. Other people will think about a frog and go, ugh, gross. One word, different reactions. It's because the word frog has come up through your brainstem, but your temporal lobe, or your memories have all had a different experience. You've had a different experience with frogs. You have a different reaction to frogs. And this one word is what we can see sometimes flip children. They go from 0 to 100, I hear people say all the time, because their perception of something, whether that be transitioning to go and get their hat, whether that be the bell rings to say that it's time for recess, and that bell sound for some is, I'm so excited it's recess time. For other children, it's like, oh my goodness, I don't want recess time to happen. The sound is exactly the same. The sound doesn't change. It's the response that's changing. So when we think of behavior and how we can support children with their behavior, we've got to really break down what was that word or that sound or that vision. And then we can start to know what action plan we have in reverse to that. Think of this sometimes when you chat with people, say the word frog and see how many different responses you get tomorrow. And you'll start to see that one word, one sensation has so many different responses from different human beings. We're quite unpredictable creatures, really. I want to show you this graph because I feel like it's really important, and it takes us back to that symphony that I was talking to you about. Optimal level of arousal is at the top of this graph. I want to share with you how I clash with my son at home. So my anxiety, my trauma sits me in what I call a high arousal level. I'm that typical child that used to flip over tables and chairs, push people out of my way, very vocal with my words. Still, when I'm about to flip my lid, I can still get very mouthy. My son is the opposite. He's what's called low arousal. So low arousal is where our anxiety sort of shuts us down. We go into retreat. We are hard to motivate. In the morning, my body's ready to go, ready for action, busy for the day. My son's energy is very low. It's like I nearly have to nag him to get your shoes on, brush your teeth, where's your bag? Because we need to bring our arousal level up to meet each other before we get into the car, before we drop off at kindergarten or school. And I want to share with you some strategies of what I'm currently doing at the moment. I use the word ADHD a lot because the symptoms are very similar for trauma and ADHD. But what I do with families and with teachers is I love to put children on a bit of a scale from 0 to 10. And I love to teach children how to do this. We want our most creative mind is between the numbers 3 and 7. So when I'm able to play, when I can focus, when I can follow instructions, when I can move my body smoothly, I'm at an arousal level of 3 and 7. If I'm under 3, I'm lethargic, I'm sleeping at kindergarten or school, I'm hard to motivate to get out of bed, I can't follow instructions because my body's really slow and hard to get up and going. Then we have me, the version up the top end of 10, where feel like we're climbing the walls. Sometimes we are. We're too hyper distracted, too highly strung. And so we can't focus either until we bring our arousal level down between a 3 and a 7. And I bring up children like my son up from 0 to 3. The challenge that we have at kindergarten and schools is you're going to have both. Even in a family system, Hugh's one of 3 in my house. Hugh's low arousal. His twin sister, Isla, often high arousal. They can clash sometimes. Our goal is to try and get pockets of our day where our arousal level meets. And how we do that is a principle called the ISO principle. I'll just spell it out for you. It's ISO principle. It's used by music therapists, and I've had great success using this in my family and also in kindergartens and schools. To explain what we do in the morning, Hugh's hard to motivate, so we meet him where he's at with music. I meet him at a slow song, about 60 beats per minute. You can actually get out your phone, Spotify, iTunes, and type in 60 BPM, so BPM, beats per minute. And you can find a full playlist of songs for 60 beats per minute music. Hugh loves it. That's exactly where his motivation in the morning is. Mine is at 140 beats per minute. I'm highly aroused, ready to go. Love rock music, love loud music. 140 beats per minute is the music that I'm playing in my bathroom. My goal is by the time we meet together in the living room to share breakfast, I want us at about 90 to 100 beats per minute. So what I'm doing in Hugh's bathroom as he's getting dressed is he's going to each song go from 60 beats per minute, next song 70 beats per minute, next song 80 beats per minute. I'm doing the opposite. I'm at 140 beats per minute. I'm coming down to 130 beats per minute, 120 beats per minute, 110. That's, you're sort of getting it, aren't you? Yeah. Why would I not just put 90 beats or 100 beats per minute music on right now? It would agitate both of us. It'd be similar to if you came to my session and I said, okay, let's go everyone. We're going to do meditation now. Some of you might love that. Some of you might be like, oh yes, meditation, amazing. People like me, no, I got to get my body ready for meditation. And this is a tricky part of kindergarten and school teachers. They don't know this information. So they mean well and they go, it's 2:30, let's put on some meditation music. And that meditation music has just been after afternoon snack time or afternoon playtime, where some children are at 140, 150 beats per minute. And then all of a sudden they've got to try and do meditation. That's when you see the children become so dysregulated, so out of control in their body, because they have to come down if they're up high, or they have to come up if they're down low to meet each other in the middle. So if you want more information, please reach out to me. I have more information on my website about the ISO principle, but the goal here is use it before drop-offs. This is a great strategy to use before kindergarten and school or school drop-off. It's also wonderful straight after kindergarten or school. So before they come inside and they have their snack, you could be doing this in the car. You know if your child was either end of their arousal level by the way that they're moving. If they're very fast-paced, fast-talking, loud, then they're what we call hyper. They're up near the number 10. If they're very slow, very lethargic, very hard to motivate, they're down near the 0. Our goal is to get them between 3 and 7. And I start with music. I'll give you some more strategies soon, but I always start with music. It doesn't matter what music, it's the tempo of the music, the beats per minute of the music. Other strategies that I often do is, here's the metronome. I sometimes don't use music. I use a metronome. So no lyrics, no fancy instruments, just a metronome at those beats that I was talking to you about. I also use lots of drumming. So drumming is an activity where we would do it ideally after school or kindergarten. I'm not organized enough to have this done before school or kindergarten, but it could be drumming pots, drumming a Bunnings lid, drumming a plate. Doesn't matter what they're drumming. But when we're drumming to those beats, it helps us to re-regulate. It helps us to calm our arousal level down or bring our arousal level up. And I love extracurricular activities such as dancing and karate. You'll hear me harp on about dancing and karate quite a lot tonight, because these disciplines, these extracurricular activities are fantastic for teaching children how to regulate their arousal levels, and also wonderful for teaching children how to manage their anxiety. So I thought I'd share that picture with you as well, just to have a little reminder later on. Another part of the areas that I really wanted to show you, this is called the homunculus. Don't stress too much about the word, just know that this is a funny representation of our sensory cortex. So I showed you briefly before, there's a sensory cortex in the middle of our brain. So the information comes through the brainstem, sensory information, and it goes to our sensory cortex. And this is the part that makes you think about what the word frog means. The word frog comes through the brainstem, goes into the sensory cortex and the memory systems, and that's when you have a response. When you look at this representation, it's showing you what the most sensitive areas of the body are. So this homunculus has a very big chin and mouth, very large tongue and esophagus, not very big arms or legs, very large hands and feet. It's showing that those areas of our brain are the most sensitive to sensory information. My mouth, my hands, and my feet. This is why often you'll see children chewing on nails, picking up random objects and chewing on them, often loving bare feet. They'll either love bare feet or they won't want to take their shoes off. We're very sensitive in these areas of our body. So the strategies that I give you tonight are very focused on these areas, our mouth, our hands, and our feet, because I know that when I provide the brain with that information, I'm going to be able to settle it the quickest. We would often know this ourselves. When I'm feeling anxious, I love to wash the dishes. I love beautiful, warm, dishwashing, soapy water, and it instantly settles me because my hands are very sensitive. Some of us love to have food, we're comforted by food because it's our esophagus and our mouth that is very sensitive to sensory information. Even I find myself still, I'll water my garden and then I'll water my feet. It just grounds me. I feel good when I've got water on my garden and water on my feet. We got to think of these areas of the body as our door to open up those abilities to start to settle our children or ourselves in the moments when we're feeling most stressed. And that's where a lot of the strategies will be aimed for. And I just want you to know and think of this image in your head of why I'm challenging and supporting those areas. The brainstem area that I was talking to you about before, the fancy name, if you want to do more research, it's called the reticular activating system. I just call it the coffee filter. Just in that brainstem, that part of the brain that we write down the bottom, it's taking information into our brain and out of our brain. It's got a filter. And what we're finding with this filter is that lots of us with ADHD, trauma, ASD, our filter doesn't work properly. So it does one of two things. It takes too much sensory information through to our brain, or it doesn't take enough. And what we're seeing with research is I'm bothered at the moment by all of the shadows under my shelf. So lots of people would look at my shelving unit and go, oh, that's nice. I'm noticing everything. My brain takes in everything, all of the colors, all of the shadows, all of the reflections. I love presenting on webinars, but I run big workshops at conferences and they like to mic me up. They always want to have a microphone on me and I hate it because I hear an echo. I hear myself echoing across the mic, and that auditory sensation, my filter is taking all of that echo to the point it distracts me. we've all got a sensory filter, and most of us, hopefully, the filter works quite well. It gives the information that our brain needs without flooding us, without overwhelming us with sensory information. But, you know, if some of us, we feel flooded by it. And we know those moments where we just want to come inside and turn the lights off. Or often a lot of my clients put a hood on. They just want a hood on all the time to protect them from the glare and the reflections and the sunlight. And what we find so frustrating in our education system is, I see it all the time. Children will have a hood on to try and create their own filter of their sensory system. And the first thing the teacher says in the morning is, good morning, take your hood off, not knowing the research that says they have a filter that may not be filtering this information, that's so glary and so distracting that just let them keep their hood on. So I'm advocating for children all the time, going, let them have a hat on if it protects that, if it provides that filter. Let them wear sunglasses if it takes the glare off. Let them have a weighted heat pack on their lap if it helps them to feel settled, because it's very agitating living with it myself. It's very agitating when this filter doesn't work properly. It's all about giving us a toolkit of how we manage our sensory world, knowing that our filter may not be working as well as we would hope it would be. One thing that I show teachers and families a lot, you can do this in your own house as well, is take photos of what it currently looks like. And imagine if you had a sensory filter that let in everything, where the filter wasn't draining out unnecessary shadows and reflections and colors and sounds. And you can see that some of us love to thrive in these areas where it's nice and crisp and clutter-free and clean, because we just want some of that sensory information to be diffused. We don't have to have the whole space like this, because I know what it's like to have 3 children in my house. I can barely keep my house clean. But what I do instead is I have small pockets of my space where I can go and retreat to, and it's clutter-free. Nothing on the walls. I turn the lights off so it's dim, not near a bright shining window. Suggestion that I often provide is underneath tables. You know, if I had have said 20 years ago, my favorite place to sit was underneath a table, people look at me strange, like, why would you do that? Well, underneath a table, it feels safe. It's dark. It's away from all the sensory stimulation. It feels comfortable. And now I wish, you know, all these beautiful products now where you can have these great, gorgeous forts that go over the top of the table. There's great tents that we put in early childhood spaces now, wonderful forts that we create in primary school spaces, just to give children a break from that overwhelming sensory environment that we're in, knowing that the filter's not working properly. Another thing that we start to do more so is have spaces where children know where to sit and know where to eat and know where they need to be, so they don't have to feel so overwhelmed by this unpredictable world that we're all in. So we look at the environment, it's trying to make and talk to the children about it. Would you like the light off? Would you like me to turn the sound up or down? For your space, whether it be 15 minutes of a sensory break, what would you like in your sensory break? Would you like a ball to bounce across the wall just to help you calm down? Would you like a skipping rope just to keep skipping to help you to calm down? Would you like blue tack to play with in your hands? Children will usually be able to tell us when they, especially when they get to an older age in primary school and high school, they can tell us what feels good, what they need. And it's just trying to be mindful of this is why they're seeking it, because that filter just isn't doing the job that the brain ideally would be supposed to be doing. I'm going to go more in depth now just to give you some inspiration. So what we found is beautiful research that where a fish tank, this sounds so bizarre, but a fish tank actually can lower some children's blood pressure and heart rate just by staring at a fish tank. They've done research in hospitals where it doesn't even need to be a real fish tank. We put fish tank with a video on a laptop, and we've done this many a time in kindergarten and schools, where the video would just be a YouTube aquarium video on a laptop playing and encouraging the children to look at it. And you can see arousal level drops, blood pressure drops, heart rate drops. When we look at anxiety or fear, we know that if we can get the blood pressure and the heart rate to lower, then we can start to turn that amygdala off. And it's a fish tank. I find that a fish tank is quite an easy resource to have. A fish tank also gives a child a sense of purpose, because the fish tank needs to be cleaned. The fish needs to be fed. When we have a sense of purpose, we feel a sense of pride and autonomy in our world. So when I think of probably the first thing that I would love for all schools and all families to have, it's a fish tank. It's brilliant, the research that we're coming from with that. Another thing that I love for the visual system is wind chimes. Wind chimes just like to blow in the breeze. And it's just giving children the moment to be mindful. Just watch which direction it's going. Is it spinning? Is it not spinning today? Ask children, what shape is it looking like today? We can get so caught up in our anxiety and our fear and our stress that we forget to just look at the clouds. What shape are the clouds today? Is it cloudy or rainy today? Is it sunny? We want to try and get children connected to their environment, knowing that now more than ever, our children are connected to their screens. Another fun resource to have is a magnifying glass. I do this with high school students as well. Find me 5 cool things with a magnifying glass. We can't be anxious and caught up in our own head when we're looking in our environment, especially our natural environment, for things that are part of nature. We are nature human beings. We are designed to be out in amongst nature. But sometimes what we do is when we're feeling nervous or anxious, we retreat within. We retreat inside our house, away from vitamin D, away from nature. So we want to try and have that beautiful relationship where we encourage them to be out and in touch with nature as much as possible. We want to also see that what can happen sometimes is some children, I use ASD here because that's, if you'd like me to stop referring to ASD, let me know, but I find that a lot of us may relate to some children with ASD, is they'll often seek visual sensation. They are visual learners. They have an exceptional visual memory. So you'll often find them laying in different positions, looking at things from different perspectives. And that can be really calming for them sometimes. So we want to try and provide these opportunities for visual sensation to help them reduce their blood pressure and reduce their heart rate. We also want to provide activities for children who may need to focus more. So children who are so easily distracted. If I want them to look at something that I need them to look at, for example, their morning routine to put their socks on, brush their teeth, have their breakfast is on bright colored paper. I want them to really focus on their bright colored paper. When we get into school, the transition objects, for example, it might be a magic wand that goes from them to you to the teacher. It's bright, it's colorful, it's bold, because I want to try and tap into those visual systems. Next sensation is tactile touch. We forget about this sometimes. And we forget even more. Our children are on screens, which isn't tactile. It's tap and swipe happy, but it's not feeling things within our fingers. If we think back to what we loved when we were a kid, we often loved baking, finger painting, mud pies. We love tactile stimulation. We know that the brain needs that. The brain needs sensory stimulation daily. So we want to try and provide it to children in a safe way, in a way that makes them feel good. Of course, some children will avoid it. They won't feel safe when they've got tactile stimulation. So how we get them used to it is we provide a little bit of paint or Play-Doh or flour, baking, and then we quickly have a face washer just next to them to show them that you can quickly wash your hands as you finish. But we've got to provide sensation to our brain, especially a developing brain. My not favorite, as I mentioned, is sound. To help me get used to a kindergarten and school environment, I had to give myself sound therapy. So I have used this therapy called bilateral stimulation. It's beautiful. Some people call it 8D audio. And bilateral stimulation, it's music that plays through one ear and then the other. So it's sort of like playing music in stereo, but I put it in my headphones. I find it very soothing. Still, if I want to focus or if I want to settle my anxiety before bed, I put bilateral stimulation or what they call 8D audio music on, and it just helps to settle my area of my brain. You, of course, wouldn't find me very close to drumming or other children drumming, but I try and get my body used to it as much as I can. Some children love to be playing with drums, playing with their own voice, hearing blocks crash and be thrown up in the air. We want to have a fine balance. What I recommend for families is, for me, knowing that I'm very defensive or avoidant of sound, whenever my children are learning, so my children are currently learning clarinet and drums, I set a timer for myself and the children that in half an hour, music time stops. And that's for my own amygdala. That's for my own brain to go, it's okay. There's 25 minutes to go, 20 minutes to go, 5 minutes to go. So my amygdala doesn't fire off because I don't like sound. My husband was the same this afternoon. I love paint. I'm very tactile. I could paint with the children all day. I saw his anxiety escalate as the paint comes out. And for him, it's very similar. It's okay. Paint's going away at 5:30. 5:30, I'm taking the paint away. So we know what we like, what we don't like. We're all different in the same house. We want to share pockets of these sensory experiences with timers for when things start and finish, so it doesn't overwhelm the whole family. So we can keep everyone sensory happy in the family. Gustatory is the fancy word for taste. It's very important for our taste buds, and I'll explain the vagus nerve more around taste soon, but it's very important that our taste buds get all different types of taste: bitter, sweet, sour, savory. If you're having children who are refusing to eat, I'll talk more soon about why that can happen. Please refer them to a speech pathologist with experience in fussy eating. Speech pathologists work in language development. They also work in eating, and they're wonderful in this space. For some speeches are amazing in this space for fussy eating. So if you're finding children are eating mostly white, mostly predictable foods, please ensure they go see a speech pathologist. The speech pathologist often comes to the home and supports you, or you can arrange for it to be at kindergarten or school. And it helps the child to become more confident in trying new foods. They do it in a very playful, fun way. But I always encourage that we have a really well-rounded taste, because we want to provide that sensation to our body in a calm, fun way, not in a stressful, anxiety-inducing way. It's out of my scope. I don't do the taste things, but I always often work closely with speechies for that. Smell, I use smell all the time, and I use smell for different purposes. So smell can be an empty shampoo bottle. I've had great success for children. I keep the empty shampoo bottles, and when you squeeze them, a puff of air comes out. And what I do when they're doing an activity that they love, I squeeze the shampoo bottle and the puff of smell comes out. The vagus nerve loves smell, loves it. So I would be playing a game they love. I know that they enjoy it, and I'll squeeze that shampoo bottle. And then when I know that there's pockets of the day where they start to feel agitated, so it might be a transition to go outside, it might be a transition to go to school, I spray that smell to try and ignite those memory systems that this smell is safe, this smell is happy. And I use that throughout the day as a strategy for them. Other strategies could be similar to where, oh, thank you, Benoit. Yes, please. Thank you.
It's just a minor comment regarding fussy eating. Someone says like you could also see a dietitian.
Yes, yes, please. Yes. And there's great services out there now where you can easily access a dietitian, and to make sure that they get those nutrients. And also I love when a dietitian and speechy work together, because the speechy comes in from a sensory perspective. Speechy wants them to have all the experiences of crunchy and soft and mushy and hard foods. And then the dietitian comes in and makes sure that the child's getting the nutrients that they need. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you so much. It's awesome. Essential oils, I often refer also to people like a naturopath, pediatrician. Essential oils have had great success in some of the children that I work with. Lavender, a very calming essential oil. Peppermint, a very focused, high focus oil. If you find that your child typically loves smell, so we'll often say things like, oh, that smells good. Or you know that when you're baking, they'll be more drawn to come and engage with you because they love the smell. Chat to your pediatrician or chat to your local maternal health nurse about who in your area does essential oils, because I've had great success. Every child is different in what they love. And of course, keep up the baking. Baking brings so much comfort, so much joy, so much warmth to the home. When we smell freshly baked cookies or freshly squeezed orange juice, our sensation, our brain just loves it. So don't underestimate those beautiful moments where you're baking in the kitchen together. It's a wonderful experience for all of you. These are our three special senses I want to chat to you about before that vagus nerve. And the first one is vestibular. So what they found with the vestibular system, it's the system where when I move my head from side to side or up and down, it gives me a sense of where I am in space. So my vestibular system is always awake. It just doesn't tell me that something happens until I suddenly move my body or I suddenly go to get up. What we're seeing with children at the moment is screen time keeps us very much focused straight in front, minimal head movement. We're not moving our head as much. When we're not moving our head as much, we're not connected to our body as much. When we don't feel connected to our body, we don't feel safe, we don't feel secure, we feel anxious. So we're doing lots of research at the moment on the impact of the vestibular system on trauma, anxiety, ADHD. Still got a long way to go. What I found in the work that I do, especially with my son who has dyspraxia and vertigo as well, what I see in him and his anxiety as I work his vestibular system more, it's beautiful to watch. He becomes more engaged with his body. He becomes more connected to his body. He's able to communicate to me more because he's not so anxious. So please definitely watch this space. If you have little ones who aren't getting the head movement that they need, not saying screens are terrible, take them away, just saying compensate for it. So if we know that they love screen time, after that, get their head moving by playing balloon tapping, tunnel ball, playing games where we roll the dice and we find the letter or the number, pushing a washing basket up and down the hallway. Fantastic for the vestibular system. And you'll also work out very soon why it's amazing for the vagus nerve. This is Phoebe's my little one here in the middle. So during COVID, she was in kindergarten. What a year it was for her for kindergarten and so many others. She was really struggling with her emotional regulation. And so I went into my vagus nerve research and I went, right, what could I provide her after kinder? Because the meltdowns we were getting after kinder were huge. And so what I did is I put all of her favorite teddies into a washing basket each session. I knew she finished at 1:30 and I knew we'd be home by 2. So I packed that washing basket full of all of her favorite toys each time, changed it up each day. And I got her to push it up and down our hallway 4 times. 4 because she was 4. And my reason for doing that is vestibular, gets her head upside down, so stimulates that vestibular system, gets her more connected with her body. And the vagus nerve, you'll know soon when I show you a picture, sits in the tummy. So when our tummy is upside down, it's like the vagus nerve getting a really beautiful hug. So it's instantly calming. She loved it, really great part of her routine, and started to lower her meltdowns after kindergarten. Similar for Hugh. Hugh was getting to the age where he's like, I'm not pushing a washing basket. I'm cool. I'm 10. So what I did for him is I got him this is a Billabo chair, this blue chair that he's on the towel. It's called a Billabo chair. And he would spin on that after school. And then that spinning sensation would be settling his vestibular system. And then he'd start to feel more connected and less anxious. You could do it on a desk chair. You could do it on a rocking chair. We all know how beautiful it feels sometimes just to sit and rock on a rocking chair. Similar for our children. We just put it as part of their daily routine. Do it as part of their program. Yes, thank you, Sonia. So Sonia just said jumping on a trampoline. Yeah, so jumping is beautiful. Jumping provides vestibular sensation and it also provides proprioception, which is my next one. Proprioception is the feeling of pressure in our joints, pressure in our muscles. So when we're jumping up and down on a trampoline, it's fantastic for proprioception. Of course, for developing joints, I tend not to get them on it too much. That's my exercise physiology hat coming in, going, can we just do 20-minute bursts, go and play something else, 20-minute bursts, because the hips and the knees aren't great for absorbing all of that proprioception for too long. But it's a wonderful settling technique. Another wonderful settling technique is balancing on something while throwing or catching a ball. Because what's happening in the first picture here is they're balancing, so getting pressure in their feet, and then they're throwing and catching a ball, which is getting them to focus and not be so caught up in their anxiety and frustration and fear. Bear hugs are wonderful. Bear hugs are so beautiful if they feel comfortable. And bear hugs just give us both that connection, both of us proprioception. Some children, especially children on the spectrum, may avoid having a bear hug, and that's completely fine. I offer them to cuddle a pillow or a cushion. I offer them a weighted blanket if they would like. And they can still have that feeling and sensation, but without the fear of us being a part of that interaction. Always offer the child what we're going to provide and if they'd like it before we do, and that's to make sure that they feel comfortable with it. I also love spray bottles, not really when they're aimed at me, but often they do get aimed at me. But I give the children the job of watering the plants. And instead of making the job easy for them, I give it to them in a spray bottle. And what we get when we spray the plants is similar to the fish tank. We get a sense of purpose. It's really important that our little ones have a sense of purpose. Why am I in this world? Why do I have this role? What role in this family do I have? Why do I have to go to school? Well, we have to have these roles because we're a really important part of our community. And some children, I need them to water my plants. My plants will be sick and my plants will die. I need them. I need them to have this purpose. And knowing, me growing up, no one cares about me, I have no purpose. I now have indoor plants galore because I love the feeling of giving purpose to something, care for something. I'm providing that care that I wish I had onto something else. And for some, it seems so silly, it's just an indoor plant. But for us, it's so profound because it means so much to us to be able to care for something else. So putting it in a spray bottle is all about proprioception, but they might like to do proprioception with a spray bottle on a fence. They might like to spray water at their maths equations, laminated maths equations. Doesn't matter what they're spraying the bottle at. It's just that action of squeezing their hand. Stress balls are very similar. Anything that Play-Doh, baking dough, wonderful for proprioception. I'm not sure if you can see behind the camera here, there's a little poppet, so adorable. I'll try and move this over, sitting inside a basket, inside a container. You'll often find children love to sit inside washing baskets, inside containers, inside tubs, similar to me loving to sit under a table. You want that feeling of comfort and safety and protection. It also gives you proprioception. So I often save cardboard boxes from my grocery delivery. I save the polystyrene boxes that you sometimes get frozen foods in, and we sit in them. And if they're tiny, under the age of 5, still too small to be snug in a washing basket, just put cushions in the washing basket surrounding them, and they feel really safe and comfortable in these spaces. We encourage the children to talk to us about how it feels. Does it feel nice in your washing basket or in this tub? And often, yes, you feel good. Well, this is the place we can go when we need to feel safe or when we need to be reminded that we're comfortable. And these opportunities are a great toolkit for them because they can use that moving into their childhood, adolescence as a way to regroup in these small areas. Of course, the washing basket's too big sometimes now for me, but you'll often still find me. I'm usually tucked up in a nice corner with a book, and I'll have the corners of the walls all surrounding me, still giving me that proprioception and that hug. And I feel nice and safe and protected in those moments. Interoception is a wonderful sensation that we're only just learning, and we're learning more and more each year in regards to this sensation. This sensation is very linked to trauma. Often a lot of us from trauma, we do what's called dissociate. So we disconnect our mind from our body because the things that we've experienced seem too hard to be a part of. I would often disconnect myself from my mind and my body because my thoughts would race if I connected what I did think I needed, what I think I deserved. I had to dissociate from that pain. And when we dissociate from things, we're not connected to this sensation called interoception. So you'll find a lot of us have poor connection with self. Even to this day, if it's a summer day and I'm getting hot, I have to remind myself to take my jumper off. You'll see lots of kids in summer still with hot, they'll be sweating, but they'll still have their jumper on. They'll be in winter and they'll have barely any clothes on, unaware that they're cold because they're not connected to self. Lots of children have difficulty with toileting because toileting, we need to understand that we've had a different feeling in our body. Our bladder feels full, our tummy feels tight. You'll also find with interoception, a lot of children will soil themselves or wet themselves and have no understanding that their body is now wet or that it was dry and now it's wet. Interoception also affects a child's ability to self-regulate because to be able to understand that I'm angry, I need to know that my body feels different. This is where I spoke about before, 0 to 100. We go from 0 to 100 because our body, our interoception should be telling us, your fists are getting tighter. I think I'm agitated. My jaw's getting tight. I think I'm agitated. I'm starting to get less saliva in my mouth. I'm starting to get angry. We don't get the warning signs because our interoception system isn't working properly. So we miss all these early signs where we could walk away and take a breath. So many times a teacher will say, they just don't take their 10 breaths. I'm like, well, they don't even know when they need to take them because they're not connected with their body to know, oh, I'm about to reach red zone or escalation zone. I better take my 10 breaths or tear my paper. We've got to get them to connect to self first. And this is where it's so beautiful in play, because I can connect them to self by connecting to other things as well. I'm connecting to self when I'm caring for a fish because I'm talking about it. Oh, how cold is the aquarium water today? Is it warm or is it cold? How do you feel when you're looking after the fish? Do you feel nice and relaxed? Are your shoulders nice and relaxed and dropped when you're feeding the fish? Or are you nervous and tense when you're feeding the fish? I love also ice play. Ice play is fantastic for interoception. It's also fantastic for the vagus nerve. So many of my strategies include ice. I have ice blocks everywhere. If you looked in my freezer, I have toys in my freezer. When we provide ice to the body, it instantly drops our heart rate and our blood pressure. We provide ice to women in labor for this purpose. We know that when a woman is in labor, their heart rate and their blood pressure is escalating. We want to manage that, keep on top of that. So, you know, if you've been in labor, the first thing that you are given, ice blocks, because you want to try and keep the heart rate and the blood pressure at bay. We want to do that for our children as well. So as they're escalating, we either play with ice, we crunch on ice, or we provide a really cold drink bottle, very cold. It's got ice in it and it's in the fridge. And when they take that beautiful drink of icy cold water, heart rate drops, blood pressure drops, fight or flight drops. And that's our goal. So if you have children who quickly go 0 to 100, or if you know yourself, you go 0 to 100, just make sure you always have ice on board, always have ice in the car. So we have now a freezer in our car, one that connects to the car, because I know that in social situations, I can easily go from 0 to 100. So always ice, always. My pencils that I work with are in the freezer. Pencils can go in the freezer. When my children have homework, they can have a frozen pencil or they can have a room temperature pencil. They can pick. And it's interesting. Oftentimes, Hugh will pick frozen pencil. He loves a face massager that's frozen. So find resources that can be frozen. And I'm always, if you need help and you need more ideas, always happy to share what's in my freezer. It's just a really beautiful settling technique. What I love also is yoga, but be mindful. You can't take a child who's at an arousal level of 10 into yoga, which is about an arousal level of 2. We've got to bring them down towards yoga. So we start up really high with them, jumping on the trampoline, playing ball really fast, running circles. Then I slowly bring it down. So they're jumping and heightened. I bring it down to, let's now jump through a hopscotch course, or let's now jump through 5 hula hoops. Then I bring it down again. Let's bear walk to go and collect 5 pairs of socks. Let's bear walk to go and collect your favorite Lego character. Bring it down again. Let's dance to some 80 beat per minute music. Let's blow bubbles. Let's roll some Play-Doh. And then I bring them down to yoga. When I bring them down to yoga, I want to talk to them about how it feels. How do your muscles feel when they're up above your head? My muscles are starting to feel really shaky because they're up above my head. When we use words like warm, tight, shaky, we're building up that connection with body. And we're building up those words that we need for toilet training, because toilet training is, how does your tummy feel? Do you feel that you need to go to the toilet? My tummy feels tight. It feels heavy. It feels full. I need to know what those words mean, know what that feeling feels like. And yoga is a wonderful way for that. So is karate, so is dance, because in those moments where we're relaxed and we're enjoying the activity, we can just add in those questions. How does your body feel right now? How does your legs feel when you're holding a wall squat? How do your hands feel when you're holding that Carter position? Connect children to self. That would be my number one go-to. We need to connect back to self as much as we can. Also, great research in doll therapy. So doll therapy is about providing care to something else. Doesn't need to be a real baby. Doll therapy is beautiful to wash the doll in icy cold water. I remember a kinder teacher looked at me funny one day. I had a young girl, reminded me quite a lot of myself back then. She was 5 and she'd come into kindergarten and go into a tiny turtle position, completely disconnected from herself, from her environment, in a turtle position. but loved dolls, loved them, would do anything for a doll. So what I did was our maternal instinct is to go and get a doll bath for the doll that's nice and warm, because we associate warm with, oh, it's beautiful and comforting, and warm soup and warm cup of tea feels good. It feels good. But I know that we need to settle that vagus nerve. We need to settle that fight or flight. So we put her doll in cold water. And the kinder teacher's like, what are you doing? Cold water? How mean? It's winter and it's Melbourne. But this beautiful moment was what we were watching was we got the doll, we got the bubbles and the cold water, and this young lady started to relax, started to open up out of turtle pose, started to see around and look around her, because I lowered her anxiety with cold water and with a doll doing what she loved. She just loved to bathe the doll. Because when we are looking after something else, caring for something else, we then have this idea that we can also care for ourselves. And that's where we want to reconnect with our children. We can, of course, do other things like dressing them, feeding them. But if you have a child that comes home or leaves the house quite heightened, one of the major activities you want to connect them with is cold water, whether that's cleaning dinosaurs, washing cars in a car wash, even going and being the teacher's helper and washing the dishes in the staff room. Just make the water cold. Feels really horrible to do, but settles the nervous system. Similar to when we're playing outside, that's what this fourth picture here is. If we find pockets of puddles or water streams, encourage children to be in amongst it. Encourage them to enjoy nature's water, no matter what the temperature is outside. Our body doesn't actually care if it's winter and the water's cold. Our brain just wants sensory information. Our brain loves it. So if we're walking past a stream on the way and we want to just play in that puddle, play in that water, we know that we can always dry. For children who are a little bit nervous of that, we just always take a face washer or a towel. So if we're playing in water at school and our clothes get wet, that's okay. We have a spare, we have a towel, we have a plan B for them. Because it's very important that they still get amongst those sensations without feeling so fearful of them. I've just written this. That's why it's important. I'll send you the slides just to remind you of these ideas. So when you get stuck and you're like, what did she tell me again? I've just written it. I've also written it with ideas, not just for home, but so you can transfer this information to schools and to kinders. That's when a lot of the times our little ones feel the most stressed. So we want to encourage children to be a part of our day. Wiping down tables while humming or singing is very therapeutic. Pushing trolleys around like that washing basket is amazing. Carrying heavy tubs, because it's that proprioception. If I'm feeling anxious and I want to try and reduce my anxiety, I madly clean. I get my vacuum cleaner out and I like to move heavy things around my house. It feels good. Children are the same. So allow them to rearrange the tables and the chairs of the space, if safe to do so. Allow them to wipe down whiteboards, get the broom out and sweep, even if they're not great cleaners. It's the action of doing it, which is really wonderful for them. It helps them to stay regulated, and especially during those times that are very stressful for them. This is the system I really want to teach you about. And you may have heard of these words before, you may not. So I'm just going to run you through them. These pictures are just for you. You don't have to remember all of this information. What I'd really love for you to remember is we have an autonomic nervous system. What autonomic means is we don't have control over it. I can't think to turn on my system. It's done through play, through movement, through sensory interaction. The parasympathetic nervous system, we call it rest, digest, and calm. Sympathetic nervous system, we call fight or flight. There's also freeze and fawn, but most of us know fight or flight. What I love about movement and play is if I turn on the parasympathetic nervous system, I instantly turn off fight or flight. So what I'm doing in those moments where I'm playing with that young girl in the cold doll bath is I'm turning her parasympathetic nervous system on through cold water, and I'm turning fight or flight off. Similar to when we, and I'll give you lots of strategies soon, but when we blow bubbles, when we sing, when we hum, it turns the parasympathetic nervous system on, turns fight or flight off. And that's the sort of the dance we want to play throughout the day. It's a dance that I play with myself every day. I know areas of my work or areas of my family life that will stress me. and I know that fight or flight is coming, and it's making sure I have my parasympathetic toolkit always available. So when those moments come, not to say they don't come anymore, they still hit me. I can still possibly go from 0 to 100, but now I've got a toolkit. And now I know what I'm going to do with those different strategies. And my family know my toolkit as well. In basic terms, the sympathetic nervous system, we have fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. I tend not to include fawn as much. Fawn is basically trying to please someone. So I'll give you whatever you want. I'll be perfect, and this was me, perfect A-grade student, just to keep you happy, just to keep me safe. So these are the children that overperform, want to please everyone, highly loyal, but inside very anxious. Fighting involves crying, screaming, swearing, blurting, throwing, pushing, grabbing, all those really heavy, obvious feelings and emotions and behaviors. Flight is where we run away. What we call abscond, try and get out of the situation. We try to avoid school. We try to hide, retreat. We go into ourselves. We also have freeze. Freeze is when you'll see a blank stare. Freeze is one of the most detrimental of these because it's high cortisol levels. There's a hormone in our body called cortisol. And this is when it's high, it causes long-term stress for our body. And so what our little ones often do is we'll go into complete shutdown. You'll often find sometimes teachers will say they fell asleep at school, or they fell asleep in the afternoon, or they fell asleep at kindergarten. Sometimes children will put themselves into shutdown, which will be sleep, but it will come from a really anxious base. We want to try and not get the children to this point. We want to try in our day. We can't take away all of these behaviors. We can't take away fight, flight, freeze, fawn all day, but if we can reduce some of it, do our best to have pockets where the child isn't in these zones. If we look at zones of regulation is a fantastic model that puts us into green, yellow, and red zones. Green is when we're calm, content, relaxed. Yellow is when we're agitated, annoyed, frustrated. Red is when we're angry, meltdowning, exploding. You'll often find that some of us in a social environment, I don't feel I'm ever green in a social environment. And some of us would be similar. So we just want to try and stay in yellow for as long as possible with the strategies that I'll give to you. We want to try, if we get to red, we just want to try and come out of red as soon as we can. So we're not in red for as long, experiencing all of that adrenaline, cortisol, all that stress for our body. So the strategies that I do, often if you go to, so my website's popped up a few times, but playmoveimprove.com.au if you need. I have a yellow and a red zone handout. If you just go into the self-regulation free download handout, in that self-regulation free download, it has yellow and red zone strategies. If you can't find it, let me know. I'll send it straight to you. And I put them in colors. So then the children start to learn, oh, this is what agitation feels like and looks like. And these are the options that can help me. This is what helps me. And when I'm in red zone, I have pictures that remind me, oh yes, suck on ice, blow bubbles, wash the dishes, wipe down the table, throw a ball against a wall to try and bring myself back out of red. The more pictures we can provide to the children, the more they start to take on their own ownership of their anxiety, and they feel that sense of power. Like, I can help myself. I can be independent in this as much as possible. Pictures really help with that. So if you need a picture for anything, let me know. Even take pictures of the children doing these activities. So when they get into these situations, we go, oh, I can see you're in yellow zone. Let's go to the pictures that you have. I think right now you might like to wash your toy cars. You might like to tear paper. You might like to come with me and bake some cookies. They have pictures to remind them how to settle their anxiety. The vagus nerve. You've been so patient. I always put this to the end because I know that's what you're here for. And the vagus nerve is an amazing nerve that is one of the longest nerves. I think it is the longest nerve in our body. It runs all the way from behind our cheekbones. We call these cranial nerves, all the way into the top of our stomach, underneath our diaphragm and our ribs. So you can see how long the branches of this vagus nerve are in this picture. And what happens with the vagus nerve is it takes information from outside our body and also from inside our body, and it turns on the parasympathetic nervous system. So if I can stimulate the vagus nerve, I can turn on the parasympathetic nervous system. And good news is I can turn off fight, flight. And that's our ultimate goal. So the strategy of drinking really cold, icy water is because cold water is going inside my mouth. It's going down my throat into my tummy. It's stimulating the vagus nerve. I didn't realize it until I started doing this research. I was a symphony clarinet player, and I played clarinet all day, every day. I learned it in grade 4, and I didn't put it down until I got my own house and started having my own family. I played it every day because now I know it felt good. The pressure from learning a woodwind instrument, the deep breaths. When we take a deep breath in and out, we get all of that vagus nerve stimulated. I was doing it every day. That was my self-soothing option. I was just very lucky that I got given a clarinet, and luckily that's what helped me. For some children, it's singing. For some children, it's tumbling and that trampolining we were talking about. When we're jumping on a trampoline, we're stimulating the vagus nerve. Some children, it's gymnastics. Hanging upside down is fantastic for the vagus nerve. So if it's gymnastics that they love to do, then it's going to settle their nervous system. I'm going to give you some more ideas, but I want you to keep this image in your mind of how long this vagus nerve is and how powerful it is. It's an amazing nerve. I love upside down play. So that's why we were talking about yoga before. Bear walking is like a crawl, but your bottom's up in the air. Tunnel ball. Remember how we used to play it? You take the ball and you put it under your legs and you give it to the person behind you. So soothing for the vagus nerve. Deep breathing. There's lots of different strategies. It's really what the child enjoys. So finger breathing is where we inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. I'm not much of a fan of that one. I much prefer to blow bubbles, play an instrument, sing. But other children love teddy bear breathing. So I squeeze my teddy for a count of 4 and I release my teddy for an exhale of 4. Squeeze it in for an inhale of 4. Squeeze it out for an exhale of 4. Other children who are more imaginative, I give them positive images. Just go to Canva or Google, type in positive beach photos or animal photos or fish, print out those pictures and get the child to imagine what it's like to be at an aquarium. What does it sound like, smell like, look like? And while they're doing those visualizing, imagineering activities, they're taking nice, long, deep breaths. Some children are going to be more visual and enjoy doing visualization activities. Other children are going to be more tactile and might like to deep breathe while they're rolling Play-Doh in their hands or while they're finger painting. We want to do it in what makes the child feel comfortable. One of the hardest things to do is we get a child to take 10 deep breaths and we have to in for 4, out for 4. And the child's like, I'm so annoyed by you right now. I don't want to do it. We want to try and make it in a way that they're enjoying. Another thing that we often do is sigh, creates vibration all the way through the vagus nerve. Now, I don't go up to a child who's agitated and go, I feel like it's time for you to sigh. What I do instead is I sigh. And what you'll often find, the mirror neurons, you see me sigh, you'll sigh. We know you'll see me yawn. Often you'll yawn. Baby sees you smile, they smile. These mirror neurons, we don't have to tell children to do them. We just do them in front of them. And over time, they start to copy us. The good news is our nervous system is also being regulated and helped in these moments. And then the child will copy us. If the child isn't copying us, that's okay. We just have it as one of their yellow zone strategies. And we go, this is going to be really great for you. It's going to be wonderful for the nerve inside your body. That's going to help to calm your brain. Thanks, Anna. I feel like I need to yawn again. It's just beautiful to release that tension, and the vagus nerve absolutely loves it. Other activities just for you to know, and I have pictures here. Boxing is wonderful in a focused manner. So what I do with the children is, yes, we bring out cushions and focus pads, but if we start to be inappropriate with them, then they go away. Very strict with the rules. That's why I like karate. Karate's in a dojo, very disciplined. So we still get that sensation and that feeling, because it feels amazing, but it's in a controlled manner. It's not let's just all box each other out in the yard. Very controlled, very structured. Again, ice therapy all the time, jumping in puddles, no matter what the weather, and hanging upside down. Absolutely. Scissor use is quite rhythmic, as long as the child isn't at risk having scissors. So when we cut rhythmically, it feels really nice. We could tear paper rhythmically. You would know if you're a knitter or a crochet person, it's the rhythmic, repetitive movements that feel really nice and help to settle us. If the child isn't settling or is reluctant to try and settle with me, I set up a Play-Doh maze. And again, I don't tell them to join in. I just start to play in front of them. So I set up the Play-Doh maze. I've got my straw ready. I've got my pom-pom or my ping pong ball, and I'm blowing the ping pong through the maze, and I deliberately suck at it. So it encourages the child to want to correct me. And when they're trying to show me how to do it better, through that straw, they're getting the vagus nerve stimulation. And that's what we want to see. I find that lots of children, myself included, coming from trauma, if you tell me to do something, I'll deliberately not do it. I'll go, no, that's not happening. But if we do it together, if we do it in a playful way, we have more likelihood of these strategies working rather than being prescribed. We just do it more alongside them. Once they know that it feels good, they'll then start to choose this strategy more. But in those early stages of trying something new, we'll have hiccups where they'll refuse to do it. This is boring. This sucks. And that's okay. We just keep providing it to them and keep offering it to them over and over. Similar to baking, they're like, I don't like baking. Baking sucks. But the more that we have fun in the kitchen, we bake and we get to eat it and we get to enjoy the moments, they may start to come around. It takes time. It's not a real quick fix, but it's just continuing to provide these strategies. And eventually we aim for that they'll do them with us and they'll enjoy them. They'll get the benefit out of them. I've just got a list here for you to always have on hand. So you're welcome to take a photo of it. You're welcome to, when you get the handouts, just print it out. I always have this on hand, so I have these resources everywhere. So a teddy bear's always in my car. If not for me, it's for my kids. Always have a teddy bear in the car. Always have music or a metronome. You can get a metronome as a free app. So you just go to your Play Store and type in metronome, and then you'll have free metronome to put on 60 beats per minute, 140 beats per minute. Always have ice blocks. Pinwheels are amazing, or a straw. Always have them in your handbag. Wherever you can be, make sure they're there. We also want to make sure that we have a drink that's icy cold. So we just get into the habit of when we go to bed at night, I put a fresh drink bottle of water in the fridge and it's ready to go the next morning. It's a daily routine to make sure we always have those resources. An outdoor senses check is just, I do this a lot for me while I'm walking my dog. I look at 5 things that I can see, 4 things that I can hear, 3 things that I can smell, 2 things that I can touch or that I'd like to touch, and 1 emotion that I can feel. It doesn't matter which order you do it in, but we just try when we're outside, even if it's walking to the letterbox, walking to get dropped off to school, it's just trying to connect with nature. Because when we connect with nature, we feel more grounded, we feel more connected, and we feel less anxious. Swing sets are amazing, trampolines, desk chairs. If you don't have a swing, you can use a desk chair to a metronome beat. So we just put on a metronome beat and then I just swing myself to each first beat. It's so beautiful and soothing, feels really nice. And vibration, there's great resources. If you have a child who loves things like weighted blankets, rough and tumble, if you go onto websites like Sensibilities is a wonderful sensory shop owned by OTs. They have a resource called, I think it's called a squeezy. If I mucked that up, just email me. And when you push it, it vibrates. Vibration provides proprioception. So if they love proprioception, but you don't want them doing rough and tumble all the time, then we provide vibration. You can also get there a T-shaped wand, like sort of, I might have it here. Women use it for collagen. As you can see, I don't even have makeup on. I'm not much of a collagen person. But this vibrates. So it's, you rub it on your face and it feels really nice. Women rub it on their neck for wrinkles. Don't worry about the wrinkles. I just use it as a proprioception tool. I don't know if you can hear it, but it vibrates. It's amazing. So good. Feels really nice. You can get ones that are silicone that OTs provide, and they can chew on them if they're quite oral in what they like. Vibration's very nice and calming for our little ones. Be mindful though, when I provide resources like these, they're hard. So I always practice a resource that's soft first. That's why the squeezies, the ones that you push, are soft, because we don't want them to throw this in frustration. Some children don't throw things, but I was a bit of a thrower back then. So I try and, with the resources that I provide first, make them soft. And then if we know that they're not going to throw them, then we can go, this is quite hard if it was to be thrown across the room. I'm wrapping it up because, my goodness, we've nearly run out of time. So bring questions in if you have any. You're always welcome also to find me online. My email address is on my website. If you have a question, you're always welcome to ask a question later, because I know it's a lot of information given to you. Just a couple more deep breathing activities. What we can do is, when we pinch our finger to breathe in and out, we're providing proprioception. I also love these drums. My stick is somewhere. I've got like a Mary Poppins box down here, so my stick's somewhere, but what I'll use a marker instead. It's a gong where I get children to breathe into the sound, and when the sound stops, breathe out. So listen, breathe in. When the sound stops, breathe out. So if they enjoy music, I go for that. Yes, please, question. Great. I love questions.
Yeah, we got a first question. Someone is asking, brushing teeth is always a stressful time for us. Any tips?
Yes. So if they try a vibrating toothbrush, had a bit of success, speechies would be wonderful in this area to make sure there's nothing happening in the jaw or the throat. So they would do a thorough assessment where they would, in those moments, if they feel safe to do so, if the child feels safe, they'll put like a stethoscope and see if anything's happening with the child's jaw when they're brushing their teeth. The tricky part is, once we have a fear around something, that area of our mouth is very sensitive. So a lot of it would be playing with a toothbrush in the mouth while we're doing another sensory activity that we find calming. So for example, if you know that they find the bath calming, we don't have the pressure of brushing their teeth. Just play with the toothbrush in their mouth to start with, while their body is having a bath, or while they're having a shower, if that's what settles them. We obviously not on a trampoline, that's a choking hazard. But if they're settled in a way, weighted blanket, calming music, we want to try and bring the anxiety level down, but make it also playful and not as task heavy. I know that's really hard when we're worrying about the health of their teeth. If that doesn't work, you can start to try the vibration wand. So as I just showed you, just start by getting their face used to vibration to settle the sensitivity of their mouth. Start crunching more on ice cubes so the nerves aren't so sensitive around their mouth. And I definitely work with a speechy for that, for sure. Yeah, I've just seen these other questions, so I'll just give them a read. I love questions. Thanks so much. Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you. You've got beautiful thank you messages, so you're very welcome. Yeah, it gets distracted. Of course. Yes. So there's two sensations that happen. Well, actually 3 sensations that happen in the mouth when we brush our teeth. We have tactile. So tactile's the soft feeling in our mouth. So from the foaming of the toothpaste. I forgot taste as well. So that's our 4th. But tactile, we get the bristles on our gums. We get the foam and the water in our mouth. That can distract us. Proprioception is the pressure in our jaw when we're trying to get the toothbrush in, and the proprioception of our hand as we're trying to brush. The 3rd one is it's very loud. Brushing our teeth, if you think about it from a sensory perspective, it's a loud action. And then the 4th one is the taste. So we've got to try and see where the sensitivities are now, knowing that filter may not be working properly. So we are easily distracted in those moments by the taste, by the smell, by the feeling, by the vibration, by the sound. So chat to them about what annoys them in those moments. For me, I tried a vibrating toothbrush and I could have nearly thrown it across the room. It was just too much for me, but other children love it. It might be, if it's a sound thing, just having background favorite music on in the bathroom while they're brushing their teeth. So their brain's enjoying Bluey, for example, not getting so distracted by the sound of their toothbrush. I'd love if you tried one of the strategies. So I'm guessing you've already tried change the flavor of the toothpaste. But if you try change the water temperature, try that for a week, see what happens. Try add more vibration to the face, try that for a week. We don't want to try everything all at once, because then if it works, you have no idea which one worked. I want to try one strategy and just see whether it made a difference. Did it make it worse? Did it make it better? And always feed back to me or OT or Speechy. And we can always brainstorm from there. It's a wonderful question. It's very common. Same with washing hair, really common. So you're not the only one, but we just got to brainstorm one sensory change at a time. Yes, thanks, Benoit. That's amazing. Thank you.
So we got another question. Someone say, I'm glad you mentioned throwing. We have a throw. Apart from redirection, are there any strategies you'd recommend?
Yes, great question. Yes, I'm a thrower for sure. More proprioception. So we want to fuel the body with proprioception before we get to red zone. So the reason why we throw things, well, a lot of us, we throw things, is it feels really good in our shoulder. If you think about when you throw a ball really hard at a wall, it's proprioception that the body is seeking. So we could try and distract and deflect, but it's either going to be turning tables, pushing chairs, throwing. We're trying to build up that proprioception in our body. So proprioception, this is where just before we're escalating, we'd push a really heavy basket to go and get something they love. It could, even if it is the Switch controller, to get the Switch controller, we're going to push a really heavy basket to go and find it. It's throwing a ball against the wall. So I played a lot of tennis, and I would just constantly be throwing a ball against the wall, throw, catch, throw, catch, throw, catch. Some children love to learn how to juggle, teach children how to juggle. When we're calm, of course, teach children how to juggle. So we just want to give the body more and more proprioception. Karate would be something I would recommend. So karate's been really beautiful for me. Just the discipline of it, the feeling of it, because then I can punch in a productive, safe way. So my body gets that feeling and that release, but without being of harm or a risk to other people. Try those proprioception activities and always reach out if it's not working. There's lots of other activities, but I definitely try and fuel the body with more proprioception and give him what we call a proprioception diet, where he's doing that. Sorry, I'm assuming he, could be she, my apologies, but where we're doing regular daily proprioception as it's a must. It just has to become a priority. Yeah, for sure. It's a tricky one. So keep at it and let me know if you need any more help. Thank you. I'll just read through the comments because I can see them popping up. This is wonderful. Excellent. Yes. Yeah, throwing's tricky. Oh, not a problem at all. Someone left early. Love it. Oh, yes, washing hair. So washing hair is very similar to teeth brushing. So washing hair, again, we want to see where the resistance is coming from. So it could be coming from the water. So I don't like the unpredictability of water coming onto my face because my face is very sensitive. So for that, we'd want to reduce sensitivity of the face. So we'd play games like the vibration wand on the cheekbone, or a feather, or a pom-pom, wipe it when we're calm, put a pom-pom down our nose, wipe it on our face, even face moisturizer. So not for skin, but just for getting a really gentle, sensitive skin, face moisturizer, and just get used to more sensation on the face. It can also be the smell in a shampoo, in a shower, especially smaller showers. Shampoo smells are very potent. So if they're sensitive to smell, they might often go, oh, ham's disgusting. That smells disgusting. They could have a very sensitive smell. So we want to try and reduce the amount of smells in the shower by changing different shower shampoos. I would start with that. Again, one sensation at a time. Is it the water? Change that. Is it the shower, the smell? Change that. Could we put music on in the bathroom to reduce their anxiety? Could we make sure before they go into the shower they're at that arousal level of 3 to 7. So we're not going to have a shower when we're too highly aroused or too under aroused. Have we done some sensory play or music to get us to optimal level of arousal? I definitely try that first. I'm mindful of all of your time. I do have more strategies just at the end. I talk too much. So when you get the slides, you'll find these other strategies. If you get stuck, just let me know. Always happy to help. But I want to thank you for having me. Thank you for staying up so late. And if you've seen the recording, thank you for taking the time to watch. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for the love. Appreciate it. And yeah, thank you for the work and the care and the love that you're providing. It really means a lot to me. Oh, you're so welcome. It gives me hope. You know, you're providing the support and the care that I wish I had. So this, honestly, this work comes from a pure place of passion. And if one strategy helps one child, then it's all been worth it. So thank you so much. You're very welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Enjoy the rest of your night.
So you guys are all, we're going to stop the recording now.
Sure.
And